Hello, everyone. I am Matt Williamson, at Williamson NFL. Give me a follow. Go check out my YouTube page, all that good stuff. It's Mailbag Day. I've really enjoyed your guys' questions over the last couple months when we've thrown mailbag stuff out there. But a couple nuggets I want to give you guys before we start with your questions, which were really good. I put this out there on Twitter last night, sitting there watching the Monday night game, kind of going through the league, doing a bunch of research on the Chargers, etc. And I believe, I'm not trying to make waves, I believe the Steelers' defense is best in the league. If I were to power rank defenses right now, they would be my first choice. I mean, the Browns are good. There's other good ones. There's other ones in contention. And I put that out there to 52,000 followers, and I got very little feedback. Now, a lot of you 52,000 are Steeler fans, I will say that. However, many aren't, and many love to bash the Steelers when they can because they know that's my team, which, great, no problem. But I think Porter shutting down Sutton and London and the middle of the field speed and the offseason's additions and some of the young guys like Wilson and Bennett, being contributors, and obviously the defensive front, which I do believe is the best in football. There's not a lot of weaknesses. I mean, if your biggest weakness is slot corner, I'll take it, so I believe that. Another Steeler note that is just so Tomlin-esque, to be honest with you, and I'm going to try to put this graph that I also put out on Twitter, just reposted it, cut and pasted it, where they talked about the EPA, the value of special teams and turnovers. And in the very, very, very top right, where you want to be, is the Steelers logo. They've benefited more from turnovers. They're +5. That's best in the league. And special teams as a whole than any team in the league. So where am I going with this? Your Steelers are 2-0. If they're the best turnover special teams and defense in the league, it kind of makes up for a bad offense or a struggling offense or a developing offense or we'll see offense, however you want to look at it. But it's along those lines. Here's a little craziness too. That is also so Steeler-esque that here are the teams that only have one offensive touchdown. Denver, 0-2. Panthers, 0-2. Bears, 1-1. And your Steelers at 2-0, of course. Something to that. And this has been going on for too many years for me to just think, oh, that's fluky. It'll come back to earth. This episode is brought to you by BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. From NFL to college, BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads when the games are being played. When the game's over, head over to the online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of over 150 slot games. Head to the website today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, all caps, and get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here. Jake Van Riper asks, do you think Terrell Edmunds finds a spot on the active roster for potential dime packages? I'm leaning towards yes. I think that, well, let me take a quick rewind. Skowronek is going to get called up off the practice squad again for this upcoming game, making it 3 in a row, which means you now have to make a decision. Do you keep him or... and they're going to keep him. So I think that means the other Elliott, other safety Elliott, gets probably demoted. Now, to add Edmunds, who are you getting rid of then? If you're already adding one new dude, who are you adding? But Jake, when he asks this question, doesn't say this week, so maybe you're just one injury away from him being the next guy up, or I don't think you'd put like Mark Robinson down or any of those guys. I mean, I think you're still keeping the defensive line the way it is. So there's not an obvious spot, in my opinion. You're using all 4 tight ends. Roman Wilson, you want to try to get out there sooner than later. So I think that day will come, but predicting when for me is a little difficult. Jake also asks, what's the likelihood of any in-season trades this season? I'd like to see it, but past history of Steeler business doesn't suggest it. I don't know about that. I mean, I think you have to look at that through the lens of the Omar regime, and I think the Omar regime is far more likely to do it than the past regime, and a lot of that's just ownership putting their stamp of approval on it. Now, I don't think they're going to get an Ayuk or, a superstar wide receiver. I mean, Devontae Adams, maybe. Who knows? I mean, I think that's probably pie in the sky thinking, but I do think this is a very active front office that'll do whatever they see fit and don't really have strict policies that they're not going to adhere to. And that brings me to the next one. Michael Adesso asks, with Jackson Smith-Njigba seeming to be taking over the numbers 2 spot in Seattle, which he has, and he should, how about a Lockett for Calvin Austin and a day 3 pick trade? I'm not sure you have to involve Austin because he's your punt returner. Again, the roster's a little full if you just added Lockett. I'm intrigued with this idea. I don't think Lockett has a lot left in the tank. I think he's had a very good career. I think he's been an underrated, really good player now for a decade or so. Him and Wilson had great rapport in Seattle. I assume they're buddies. They obviously know each other. I think Lockett is still better than Van Jefferson and would be useful here. He's cost some money. Seattle, if you look at their cap space a year from now, is really terrible. So they could move him. But they're also 2-0 and feeling pretty good about themselves. And he's a high character guy. I don't think you could give much up for him. I'm thinking like a 5th round pick. But I'm not sure Seattle's quite ready to move on from him. But that's the kind of trade I'm thinking here. That kind of name. Another one I'm just going to throw out for fun is Washington is greatly underusing Terry McLaurin. And they're going to be terrible. I mean, at the trade deadline, could you get that guy from a really bad team? He's not young anymore. I like that better. Verks asks, how are you liking working for the Steelers in official capacity this season? Was pleasantly surprised to see you on Steelers.com video breaking down the game. Nice of you. I usually don't put these ones in here, but that is very nice of you. So I just wanted to mention that's been going on for some time. But this has only been the second season that Rob King, Dale Lawley, and I have done a Thursday matchup show on video. It's really well done and produced with all the great Steeler video people and very professionally done. It's not just me on a YouTube, in front of a camera in my basement or whatever. But I have been working for them in official capacity for a long time. I mean, Dale and I have done The Drive, which is on Steelers.com. That type of thing. But I love it. It's great. I mean, they're a great organization. You get to be behind the scenes. A lot of the info I get from you guys is living at camp because of my Steeler affiliation, all that good stuff. But thank you, Verks. Go check it out. It's good stuff. Bruce, I got 2 more questions here, and this one's one I'm just started thinking about. Bruce said, do you think they give Dan Moore another contract? I still think Broderick is the future, and it seems very un-Steeler-like to let an assuming cheap vet walk when there's uncertainty. Dan has been shaky in the past, but players are allowed to get better. Credit to him. I would be interested. Now, I think when you say a cheap vet walk, I think you might be underestimating the left tackle market. He's not Anthony Munoz. He's not great, but he's going to make more than Chooks did on the open market. That much I'm pretty certain of. At his age, with his experience, left tackle, he's better than 10 of the starting guys out there. So it won't be cheap. And he's played quite well through 2 games. And I've said before the season on this airwaves that I thought he was one of the most improved Steelers based on training camp in the preseason. So that looks like it's coming to fruition. His body's better looking. It's firmer, it's stronger, it's more muscular. He works really, really hard. He's never going to be Anthony Munoz. I think we know that. But I'm not losing faith in Broderick Jones. But I really like the Steelers' philosophy of having what I often say is an extra lineman, that they get a little greedy with the offensive linemen. If they need 8, they always have 9, and right now that's working out quite well for them. So I think that's something that they like to do. I would think he would be the starting left tackle if you do that, because he's going to make starting left tackle money. I'm not going to do that and bump him into guard. I don't think James Daniels will be back at right guard. I still think Broderick Jones is best at left tackle and Fautanu is best at right tackle. But there's many out there that think Fautanu, kind of in a Zach Martin fashion, can play tackle, but could be the best guard in the league type of thing. That's intriguing. Move him in and Broderick to the right side. I don't really see Broderick as a guard, but maybe. I mean, how many positions are they going to ask this guy to play? I also don't know that you have to go outside the organization to replace him at guard. I mean, some of the young guys are appealing. And I also would not do any of these deals soon. Not that they give contracts out during the season. But Dan Moore's played well through 2 games. Let's see what he does against these Chargers edge rushers and later in the year against Myles Garrett and Hendrickson and the big-time guys. Let's see when some stiffer challenges come along. But the Steelers have a lot of cap money, and an extra offensive lineman I don't think is the worst idea in the world. Last question for you. Joey Bag of Donuts, he's always a big-time contributor. How different is last year's offensive line blocking scheme than this year's? I'll be honest, I can't comment on protections. I don't know a lot about protections. There's a lot of, there's so many. I haven't really studied them. But the run game is different. I mean, the run game is definitely different. Certainly the way that the play caller sequences plays, but that's not what you're asking. Pay attention to this because it bothers me a little, but I also understand it. Very, very few pulling linemen. Broderick Jones was so good at that. I thought that's when they were at their best, was kind of weaponizing these mobile offensive linemen, pulling and trapping and things like that. So this is much more zone-based. And that doesn't mean it's not movement-based by the linemen, but it's 5 synchronized swimming, dancing bears moving as one, as opposed to Alan Faneca pulling around the corner, looking to bury a safety or a linebacker. And that's Arthur Smith, and it's successful. And outside zone, when it's running well, is a beautiful art form. Think of like the Broncos with Terrell Davis back in the day. It's really hard to deal with when 5 guys are on the same page and all moving as one. But I don't love that what worked so well last year sure looks like it's getting phased out. So, all right, guys, good pod, good stuff. I will talk to you soon.